live on YouTube in a couple weeks. So looks like there's a little bit of a new setup.
Okay.
Awesome. So we've got a couple people hopping on. I'll give everyone a couple more seconds.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited because I don't think I've gone live on YouTube in a long time either. So this is gonna be fun.
I think this might be our first like YouTube live of 2024, actually.
You're right. Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. I love that.
Oh yeah, we got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Amazing. All right, so I think people will start to get notifications if they saved this. So um, I'm just gonna kick us off. I see some hearts coming in and some comments coming in. Awesome. Okay, cool. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sarah, co-founder of ArtSnacks, and tonight is the Watercolor Snacks Swatch Party. So I hope you all brought your watercolors, anything you're working on. If you are making something else and just want us on in the background to hear us chat, totally cool too. This is going to be a low key paint swatching session, and we're going to talk all things watercolor snacks. So I have here with me the Watercolor Snacks resident artist, Amelia. And Amelia, where are you live streaming from?
So I'm live streaming from Baltimore, Maryland.
Nice, awesome.
Yeah.
And I am in Boston, Massachusetts. So I just love live streaming like this because it can just bring people that are incredibly far away from each other to be right next to each other. Isn't it crazy?
It's so fun. I really love that. It's such a great way to also get to create with other artists. I feel like I spend so much time in my studio by myself, and it's really nice because I get the comfort of my own home and setup, but the
Mm,
company of my artist friends. So it's really fun.
that's so true. And it's a two-way situation here. So if you are watching, feel free to drop something in the comments to say hello, maybe where you're watching from. We can see the comments. There'll be a question and answer session at the end too. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in. So yeah, we're all in this together. And just to give everyone an overview of what is going to go down for the next like 45-ish minutes, we're going to talk about a couple watercolor related things that we're loving, brands we're using, fun color palettes, you name it, whatever you want to discuss. And then we'll talk about the next watercolor snacks box, which is the winter box. That winter schedule is shifted a little bit. So the box ships in February, which is next week. So we'll talk about the color palette that's in that box. And then we'll open it up to questions to the audience. So, with that said, see, we've got 18 people live now. Give us a heart, give us a thumbs up if you are watching. And before we switch our cameras forward, Amelia, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So I am an artist, illustrator mostly. Primarily, I like to do children's illustrations, so stuff for picture books. I also like to do anything sequential, so also little comics, that kind of thing. So that's the type of work that I like to make. And I love working in watercolor. It's so much fun. And it's one of the first paints that I learned how to use as a kid, actually.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so I'm really excited to be working with Watercolor Snacks, and I love to teach also. So I am a art professor. So I teach illustration at a university, which is really fun because you just get to be so creative with that. And then I'm also new this semester. I'm going to be teaching color theory, which is really fun. And I think I love teaching because I feel like I'm learning along with the students. So I'm always seeking out cool, fun things to talk about and art stuff. And yeah, so that's just a little bit about me.
awesome. Amazing. I totally forgot that you told me a while ago that you were adding another class to teach.
Hmm.
And I feel like color theory is truly timeless. Like you can always brush up on color theory whenever for absolutely anything. So
Definitely.
that is great. You'll have to teach us a little bit about what's going on in the color theory world. Um,
Definitely.
So with that said, I'm gonna take a minute here. I'm gonna turn my camera around so you can see my swatching area. And Amelia, let's do the same.
Sounds good. I'm gonna warn everyone it's gonna get wiggly on my end, so bear with me while I move my setup around.
Of
So,
course.
all right.
That's how
So
you
let's
know it's
see.
real. Like this is
Yeah.
a real live stream. It's when things get, you look at the ceilings of our rooms.
Yes. All right. Now I just have to adjust a little. Bear
Yeah, I
with
have
me here.
to. I love symmetry, so like I need to make sure like everything is
Oh yeah,
straight.
this should be. See, and I'm even facing it the wrong way. And I gotta move my noodle arm.
Yeah, I used to have one of those, and I
Mhm.
recently switched to something else. But I always go back to the wiggly arm because it's so much easier to use.
So, okay, sorry about all the wiggling. I'm just trying to get it set up so that you don't see that arm in the way, but it's hard when you have it facing non-landscape. We'll do our best, right?
If you are watching from home on YouTube, give us a thumbs up or drop in the comments. Let us know if you can see everything fine.
Yeah, let me know.
I have this is a new setup for me. So my phone is higher, like my camera is higher than it usually is. So I'm getting used to this too.
I bet that there's a easier way for me to do this, but oh, I think I got it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what you
We
did there.
got it. All right.
And if we see a little bit of your phone stand, it's not the end of the world, you know?
Yeah.
It's going to look like art in a few minutes. So,
Yeah.
so before we get started, I brought a candle to light.
Oh, fun. Well, I brought a cup of tea, so we're
Oh,
ready.
we are ready. This is a cozy, like, winter night. We are
Yeah.
just getting in the mood. I'm going to light this candle and let it burn.
I love that. I've been burning a lot of candles lately just because I like just having the sort of glow, but also they smell really nice and
Mm.
I just feel very cozy. It's a good creative atmosphere.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to bring here. The next watercolor snacks box is the cozy critter coffee shop
Mhm.
situation. So I was like, how can I make this more cozy, for lack of a better term?
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to bring a candle.
Yep. And I was thinking the same thing with the tea.
Excellent. I mean, I have a Diet Coke, so we can cheers. Cheers.
Yes. Cheers. And
Amazing.
cheers to everyone else if you have a cozy drink as well.
Yes. Okay, cool. So to start us off, um, I have a couple things on my surface here, but I am curious about what's going on with your liquid watercolor paper.
Yeah, so I grabbed this. This is a watercolor block I haven't used in a little while, but this is one, my memory serves correct, I got in an ArtSnacks Plus box, I think a little while ago. Um,
Hmm.
and this is one that is, let me flip back really quick. It usually says on the front. So I'm not sure. I think it looks like a hot press. I wanted to see if it was written because usually it'll say on the front, but it's the hot press, which means it's the smoother paper. So I'll try to
Mm,
put it in the light. You don't see as much of the tooth like the kind of watercolor paper you might originally or initially think of is the kind that's really bumpy. This is the kind
right.
that's nice and smooth. So I like to work in this finish of paper.
I actually have little pieces of hot press as well tonight.
Fun.
I have these little ones that are hot press, and then I have so this is not featured in a box yet. Hannah Mule sent me a bookmark pad of watercolor paper.
Ooh. Oh my
Um, I've
gosh.
I've been using it for other things, but this is cold press. So my
Oh,
lighting is
great.
not super helpful, but if you can see like the texture of the paper,
Mhm.
for those of you who don't know, cold press has texture on the paper. Hot press is smooth. So I really like
Yeah.
to use this for swatching.
Yeah, I was about to say that that is kind of like the perfect, like, pre-cut swatch
Mm.
paper size. So that's excellent. And I actually also grabbed another pad of paper. This is it's a Winsor Newton watercolor pad, and this is cold press.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, so oops, sorry, bumping into my camera. Whoa, we're getting really crazy here. Um, so
You're
you
good.
can see you can see this a little more too, hopefully.
Oh, yeah, I
Um,
can see it.
yeah, so this is when you compare the two, you can kind of see, whoop, there we go. You can kind of see the difference there.
Oh,
So,
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I hope one day that we can feature the bookmark pad. For now, it's just gonna be a swatching tool for me, but, cold press, I mean, I really have no preference, cold press versus hot press,
Mhm.
um, but, spoiler alert, there is hot
Mhm.
press in the next Watercolor Snacks box.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's gonna be fun to
Yeah.
work with.
So I am gonna dive right into what I have with me tonight for painting. Um, for paints, I have a mix of Daniel Smith and a little bit of core, just
Mhm.
some just some random colors that I'll explain in a moment, and then I have the Viva color sheets. This
Ooh.
is I have so many of these, not just because we sell them in the art snack shop, but just because I take them with me everywhere. This is a fresh a fresh one.
Mhm.
So I want to use some of the colors here for something that I've been holding on to this week. Uh,
Ooh, I'm excited.
as a lot of the art snacks community knows, I got married 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
And I actually saved a lot of the centerpieces. We had these giant, like, flower bouquet centerpieces, um, and I let guests take them home, but all the ones that we had left over, I have, like, sprinkled around my house.
Mhm.
So, the flowers have dried, and I
Mm.
collected this beautiful color palette of these, like, dried flowers that I am just, like, obsessed with.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That is
so
so pretty.
yeah, aren't they like I haven't figured out like how I want to preserve them. And I know
Mhm.
this is going to be like an art journal snacks project at some point, but
Yeah,
um
definitely.
I've got this like it looks a little too dark on the screen, but it's like a beautiful maroon. These hydrangeas go from this like tan color to pink. And that's not like spray painted. It came like that. It was like a
Wow.
pink and then faded into like this beige. I have some eucalyptus, which is a beautiful sage color. And then there were some berries just to pull in more of the maroon colors in the bouquets. So I kept all of this. I just picked them off fresh from the dried bouquets this afternoon.
Wow.
Um, so this is my color palette tonight. So
That is so pretty. I don't have anything quite as pretty and impressive, it's just in my mind.
totally
You'll
fine.
just have to trust me.
So I am just going to, and like I don't have like there's no sage green in the
Mhm.
core watercolor family. You know what I mean? Like this is green
Yeah.
gold, so I'm gonna have to mix some colors. Um, I know that the Via color sheets have like a lot of a very wide range of colors here, which
Mhm.
will be good for mixing. So I am just going to get into it and just play with some colors that I can pull out of my dried flower color palette.
I
That
love
is what
that.
I'm doing tonight.
I love that. That is gonna be so fun. I'm really excited.
Thank you.
But I'm yeah, and I'm happy to share what I brought too. I'm kind
Yes,
of thinking of just kind of working intuitively a little bit and just pulling colors that I'm drawn to. So
love that.
yeah, so we'll see what happens. But I grabbed this is the actually the watercolor palette that came in the most recent watercolor snacks box. But I'm a big fan of it because it has a good balance of warm and cool colors. So I'm sure a
Mm.
lot of people have seen it already, but if you haven't, you'll get a chance to see a little bit of it tonight. I'm also really partial to watercolor pans. because I feel like I tend to be someone who works when I'm struck by inspiration or when I have the most time to do it. So the less time it takes to set up, the better. So I always love something that's really convenient to set up.
That's a
Um,
really good tip, actually. I never thought of that. Like,
yeah.
what's the fastest type of paint that you can just get into? And that is definitely pans.
Yeah, yeah, and, I also just really like, how, saturated you can get the color, but you can also get just sort of a light color from that, just depending on how much water you use, so there's a really nice variety of how saturated you can make the colors.
That
And similarly, in terms of convenience, I also grabbed, these Caran d'Ache Neo colors. So these are water-soluble, uh, watercolor crayons,
mm,
and they're really fun because you can kind of alternate between, doing drawings and then, using water on top of it to, break down the watercolor and then, spread it out. So to pair with that, I also grabbed it's a water brush, which is again really convenient if you find yourself out in the world, and you want to do like a live sketch on the bus or in the park. These are a really good combo for that.
that's
Same with
awesome.
the pans.
You are all
Yeah,
about we like picked the most opposite things tonight. Like you are all
yeah.
about convenience and on the go, and I'm like set up. I've got palette paper. I've got 2 glasses of water. Like I'm here for the long haul, and you're like, I got places to go.
I know. Well, I feel like I'm one of those people that is just so excited about so many things that I'm like, okay, how do I maximize my time that I can do everything?
Mm,
So,
I love that.
but I brought all kinds of fun things, so I'll bring out a couple more as we go, just in case we want to just keep sharing some other fun things. I'm setting my brushes down next to me in a metal pan, so if you hear clinking, that's what that is.
What is that noise? You
Oh,
know
I'm
it's our
always making
side
noise.
being
Yes.
around.
Yes.
Amazing.
Um,
Yeah, I
yeah.
just put out a little bit of the Rose of Ultramarine, and it is super close to the color
Oh,
that I like for these dried rose petals.
yeah, I love that. And it matches your nails too, which I noticed.
Oh yeah. I didn't even notice that.
I
Uh,
knew your nails were gonna be so cute. I never do my nails. I was like, "Oh, I should paint my nails."
honestly, after a while, I was like, do I actually paint my nails for when I do live streams of just my hands? And after a while, you're just kind of like, yeah, I'll do it. But I haven't had my nails done in a while. I was sort of like trying to grow them out for
Mm.
the wedding. So this is the wedding nail polish. But I'm getting them done next week to take it off so my nails
Oh,
can
okay.
breathe for a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a while it was something that I like consciously think of. It's like, how much jewelry do I wear? How much do I want on my hands if my hands are going to be the only thing you see? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know, I think about that too, but, I'm just so rough with my hands that my nail polish doesn't last more than a day.
It's not for
Mm.
everybody, but
Yeah. Well, and I think I have really, thin nails too, so they tend to I can't grow them very long, so they're always really they break, so
hey,
but
that's the same here. But maybe it's just an artist thing.
I think it is, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, even when I take really I really, really try to take care of them, I just get paint all over them, or my hands are covered in graphite or something like that, so
Amazing. So I want to talk a little bit about while we're just swatching out here and sort of going with the flow. Um, you've had 3 live streams with the fall box, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the last one is this coming weekend, right?
Yes, that's correct.
What are some of the things that you have taught on those live streams lately?
So let me think. I'm trying to think back to way back when I did the first one.
You know, last year.
Yeah, last year. Well, the most recent one, we talked about the different techniques you can use to resist watercolors.
Mm,
So that's when you apply something to the paper that sort of disperses the watercolor in one way or another. So a few examples of that are if you put wax crayon down on the paper, you can use white or different colors. So that was a tool that we used in our painting. So
mhm.
we did a drawing with the crayons and we created some fireworks. So when we put a layer of paint over top, it created a resist effect and the wax came through the watercolor. But there are some pretty cool and interesting ways that you can get creative with creating or not just wax resist, but resist in general. You can use tape and then peel the tape off later. There are different kinds of rubbery materials that are really similar to glue, but it's not quite as sticky. Um, and you can use actual glue as an option too. Um,
Gonna say, I think I've used like back in the day, I used like Elmer's glue.
mhm.
I remember when I first discovered the resist method, and
Mhm.
I was like, did I just discover something completely new? And then later on, I found out like artists do it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the first time I used the crayon technique, I was in elementary school, and I remember I feel like I drew, like, a king or something, but we drew an illustration with crayons, and part of it was you had to fill in the whole space with your crayons. So you did a whole crayon drawing, and then we would take black acrylic paint and paint over top of it. And there would be a really strong contrast between your crayon drawing and the black paint that was on top. And I always thought that was so cool. And so I was thinking about that when I was doing the wax resist. I was like, "I remember doing this when I was a kid." So that was really fun.
Oh, to be a kid again.
I know. Well, I think that's why I love art so much because it's one of those things where you kinda get to go back to being a kid every time you make something, which is really fun.
Totally. Oh my gosh, I couldn't relate more. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's the best. I really do love it. Oops, sorry, I'm bumping my camera, getting wiggly.
I'm like I'm sort of getting into that like flow state when you are
Mhm.
making art. And also I just like have not made anything in a while because I've been preoccupied with other things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
I bet.
I've got my setup here. I'm just like, oh my gosh, wait, what about this color? How about that color? What can I make with this? So I love that flow state. I get that a lot when I'm like in Photoshop editing photos.
Mm. Yeah, I know what you mean when it's just kind of like, all right, I'm in the zone, I know what I'm doing,
Hmm.
and you don't have to really think about how to use the tools. You just kind of let it go, whatever tools you're using, whether it's paper or software. It's
Totally. When you use watercolors, wait, let me rephrase this. When you want to mix watercolors, do
Mhm.
you do them on a palette or do you do them on the paper?
That's a great question. I think it depends on what it is that I am painting. So
Okay.
if I want to do an area of color that has a really particular uh, color, I was like, is there another way for me to say that? No.
That is a tongue twister that only artists can understand.
Yes. So if I have a particular area that is really specific, and I want to mix a color and then apply it to the paper, I will mix it before I put it on the paper in a palette. So I
Mm,
have a little palette over here. I'm not using it right now, but if I, for example, wanted to mix a green, And I wanted to make sure I got the color exactly how I wanted it to look. I'll usually mix it on a palette first, and then this is one of my pieces of swatch paper. I test
Oh,
the color. So you can see here's two different sort of tones of this brown color where I
hmm.
was testing to make sure that I liked it. Here's another one where I was testing like to see the mixture of the balance of the two colors I was mixing together. So in that instance, if I'm really particular about what I want, then I'm definitely going to mix it in a palette beforehand.
Got
But
it.
if I'm doing something that's kind of like I want it to look a little messy or blended together, then sometimes what I'll do is while the paint is still wet, I'll go in and add another color into that. And they create, actually, there's a perfect example right here. Sometimes it'll create what's called a bloom. And that
Ooh.
is something that sometimes you want that and sometimes you don't. But I think it's a really cool texture effect um, for when the colors run into each other. So that's kind of happening here where I'm just kind of playing around to get different textures and mixtures. So yeah, I think
And
um,
that too,
yeah,
I
just kind
had like, I guess a little bit of bloom.
yeah. Oh, those are cute.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, there are some little berries in the bouquets. It's a little dark on camera, but they are
Mhm.
much lighter. So yeah, I asked about the mixing color question, just because I was dealing with like I'm it's gonna take me a while to make this, sage or succulent green, um,
Mhm.
or what? Oh, eucalyptus. I'm like, why can't I say this word? What is the word? Eucalyptus. It's gonna take me some time to like really mix together this eucalyptus color. So instead, I was
Mhm.
just like, oh, I'll just mix light green and sap green and see what happens. And then I like panicked because I was like, do I do it on palette paper or do I just do it on the paper? And I just went with it on the paper, and it's
Yeah.
not okay.
Yeah. That I think that looks great. And that's actually I'm glad that you brought that up because I remembered something else that you can do with watercolors, which is pretty neat, is building up different layers. So you can do washes of watercolor. So for example, if you have a layer of we have yellow on the paper, but we want to create a green color, you can wait for the yellow to dry first and get a little bit of a watered down blue, and then you can add a wash on top like that.
Ooh, I like that technique.
Yeah, so then if you have so watercolor is transparent, so the color underneath is going to show through the next layer that you put onto the paper. So if you mix colors that like primary colors that create a secondary color, then that's going to mix on the paper. Uh, and but you could also, if you wanted to create like a yellow orange color, you could put either red or yellow on the paper first and then add another layer. But the trick is to wait until it's dry before you add the next layer. Otherwise, you'll start to lift the layer underneath off
I'm
because it'll be
so
wet.
bad at waiting for things to dry.
Yeah, me too.
Anybody else in the chat really bad at patience? Definitely
Um,
not my strong suit, I'd say.
yeah, not mine either. It's just too fun and exciting to move on to the next step.
I know. I remember when what's her name? When Bree used to do live streaming, she would have a hot tool that would just like dry everything instantly. And I'm like, I don't even have the patience to use a hot tool. Like, I just want to dry now.
Oh my gosh, that's very relatable. But that's also brilliant to have something to help dry the paper. That's such a good idea.
Mm.
Um, because that's a good way to kind of combat that impatience.
It's something. It's definitely something. I'm looking in the chat here. Oh, Estella, thank you. Congratulations on my nuptials. Thank you. Rodney asked, "What watercolor box are you swatching?" So, Rodney, tonight is sort of like a what's the word? I want to say like watercolor improv.
Yeah, like a freestyle kind
It's
of?
definitely a freestyle. Amelia
Yeah.
sort of came to the table with whatever we felt like creating tonight.
Mhm.
Um, if anybody else is just joining us, I have a bunch of dried flowers from my wedding that I wanted to start painting. So I'm just sort of going in really organically, trying to get these dried hydrangeas swatched out. And I think I moved on to, this is just sepia. So I'm going to try to wait till it dries and then add some magenta, but we'll see how far that takes me.
Mhm.
How we doing on time? All right, we're good. And Amelia, do you
Mhm.
use the Caran d'Ache uh, water soluble pastels? Is that what you started out with?
Yeah, so I have just been kind of playing with drawing some shapes and creating some marks with the Neocolor. I guess they're like water soluble crayons. Another
Definitely.
really great one besides Neocolor very similar is the Marabou watercolor. Uh,
Oh, the art crayons. Yeah.
yes, they're really nice and they're very similar to this. But yeah, I'm just playing around with making marks and textures, and then playing with the balance between areas that are more spread out and softer and have that watercolor texture with more defined sort of hard lines and sort of I don't know, I guess how they can play together. I'm really interested in textures and color and marks, especially with watercolor. So I
Mm.
think it's really fun to play with.
I have a teacher question.
Oh, great.
Um, when you teach in the classroom and say you teach some like watercolor techniques or color theory, and you suggest people to bring in watercolors or do their homework with watercolor or whatever, um, do you let them choose what kind of watercolors to use, or do you like recommend brands? How do you go about, guiding your students on art materials?
That is a really good question. So I will probably recommend tools that they're going to have an easier time working with. So asking them to avoid like picking up a watercolor palette from like the dollar store or something that's going to be really almost like fighting against them because the
On
quality of the materials is just not there. But at the same time, understanding that they're students who are probably working like a part-time job, that they don't need to go out and get the most like expensive watercolors that they can find. That there's a good middle ground. So I would probably show them something like Core or Caran d'Ache or Winsor Newton, something like that, or Derwent. I also really like. I think those are really good high quality materials that are not terribly expensive. It's something that is affordable. It's going to last them a long time, but it's also something they can feel comfortable practicing with. So if it takes a couple tries to get something right, they don't feel like they're like, oh no, but this was such expensive material that I feel like I can't, make a mistake. Um, so I think for me personally, I want to encourage people to use materials that they feel um, like curious about and interested in using and let them pick their own with recommendations. And then I would probably do a demonstration with any of those materials I mentioned. Any of those brands I think would be really good um, for demos too.
Cool. Nice. So you sort of just like put the confidence in the artist to choose wisely, basically.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that one of the things that I've been learning, because I'm always learning too,
Mm,
about being a teacher, is knowing when to guide somebody and when to kind of allow them to make discoveries and give them the room to experiment with things and try things and, uh, I think most importantly, fail with things because
yeah,
even though failing seems really scary, but it's such an important and necessary part of growth and the process of any artist or when you're learning any skill because you learn from those mistakes that you make and you figure out like, oh, okay, it didn't work this time, so I'm not going to do that next time. I'm going to try this, and then eventually you figure out what works, and that's how you get stronger. So
totally. Oh my gosh. I'm such a student tonight.
aw,
So
well, I'm
really.
glad.
So I'm looking in the chat here. If anybody has any questions who's watching, feel free to drop it in the chat. I see Rodney has some questions. Has the winter box shipped? So the winter box has not shipped yet. It is shipping first week of February, which is some of them I think will go out next week. Um, if not, they'll go out the week after. But we always send tracking numbers via email, so you will absolutely know when your box leaves the door, heads out the door. And how are we doing on time? Ooh, Amelia, do you want to give us a little sneak peek? Maybe swatch out the color palette that is coming in the winter box. I think that's a
I
good segue.
y- yeah, I do. I'm very excited to share these colors because they're really beautiful. So let me just move some of these things out of the way.
And while you're doing that, I did receive a question on Instagram. Today I posted a short reel of the colors being swatched out as well. Um,
Mhm.
and somebody was curious if there was any other paint coming in the box. And without spilling all the news of what's coming in this box, we want to keep that surprise alive. There are other water soluble pieces coming in the box that will add some color, some flavor to your art pieces. So the
Mhm.
colors that Amelia will be swatching out are sort of like our signature colors, but there will be other um, colors in the box to complement those. So
Thank you.
yeah, just
Um,
that little a disclaimer.
yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Um, I have another watercolor pad here because I actually am also going to give a little sneak preview of something that's very cool that our Watercolor Snacks subscribers get within our private mix group.
Ooh,
Um, so this is something that our previous Watercolor Snacks artist Bree did that I am continuing that because I just think it's so cool. Is a designed swatch card. So I'll do an illustration and then post it. So if you want to kind of fill in some drawings with your watercolors, you can swatch them into the different shapes, and it's usually related to the theme of the box. So I actually already it's something you can print out and transfer. So I already transferred mine on here, but because we have a cozy bookshop theme, I'm going to be swatching the colors into some books. So it's not just going to be shapes on the paper, it's going to fill in some of these shapes here. So just wanted to share that. And you can kind of see what you can do within the mix group as well. So I'm just gonna scoot this
I'm gonna
over. Oh, you did
I'm gonna show
some.
off mine. But right before the live stream, I was able to transfer two books onto some hot press paper. So I'm gonna paint along with you. It's not gonna be the colors that you'll be using, but I
Mhm.
wanted to try the transfer method, and I was like, oh my god, I did it! So now I'm gonna
Oh,
do it with you.
it looks so good. Also, the flowers that you painted are beautiful. I love
Oh, thank you,
those. That's gorgeous. Oh
thank
my
you. I
god.
want to let it dry a little bit.
Yeah.
Where that takes me later tonight. So I'm gonna leave it off to the side for now.
It would be so cute in a little teeny tiny frame. I'm just saying.
Don't be surprised if you get something in the mail next week, Amelia.
Okay.
Something, a teeny tiny frame.
Okay. Okay, so these are the paints that are gonna be coming in the next, Watercolor Snacks box. I'm really excited about these colors. So there are 3, and they come in the little tubes here. So we have the oh my gosh, sorry, are you guys awake? I'm making lots of noise over here. Um, so we have the Hansa Yellow Deep, the Phthalo Turquoise, and Prussian Blue. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a little bit of paint onto my palette here. And I'm really excited about this watercolor palette, these colors together, because at least where I live, I know that not all of our watercolor snackers and art snackers and viewers are from an area that gets cold, but where I live, we just got a bunch of snow, which is awesome. I know someone else is from Baltimore here, and I hope that you enjoyed the snow too, because we haven't had it in a long time. So my mind is kind of on cool colors. When I look outside, the sky is like this kind of cool gray blue. Um, and the right now we have the snow, although it's starting to melt. When I look at the ground, you have this beautiful like the white snow and then the cool blue shadows. So I've been thinking a lot about and also it gets dark early, so it's dark out. So it's nice, deep, dark, cool colors. Um, that's like the blue and the phthalo turquoise. Um, but also, the really pretty thing about this time of year is that there are little twinkling lights. I think of candles, like Sarah has a candle,
Yep.
which is thematically appropriate. Um, I have electric candles in our windows, and I just think about, when you see the lights that people might still have up on their houses, or, just things that are kind of those little cheerful, warm specks of color. That's kind of what I was thinking about. So I think this is a really beautiful palette for that in this time of year.
Love that. Couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. Amazing. I happen to have found a Prussian blue in my Viviva color palette, so I sort of just went with it.
Oh, cool.
Say it's like the same exact blue.
Yeah.
It probably has a little bit difference in pigment count. They're made in probably totally different factories, but
Yeah.
I I'm envious in the fact that you have the color palette. So I'm like, all right, how do I get on?
Oh, yeah. Well, you can get close as you can to
Totally.
it, and that will look good. But hopefully soon enough, It's just a couple, not days, weeks. It's a couple weeks away.
Yeah. Let me look in the chat here. Amelia, can you mix watercolor paints and the water soluble crayons together? Aaron
Yes.
Aaron in the journal box has been using water on the Caran d'Ache crayons, but sometimes you need different colors. Oh, so do you
Yeah.
normally mix actually, that's a good question. Do you normally mix, like, paints from a paint tray with water-soluble pencils? Or is that, like,
Yeah.
the rules?
No, no. Well, there are rules in art, but they're there just so that you can break them because you need to have rules in order to break them.
Oh, totally.
But but I actually love to mix media all the time. So I don't think there's anything wrong with mixing the water soluble crayons with if you have tubes of paint or if you have um pans of paint, whatever you have, you could definitely mix them together, and I think it would look great. Um, just keeping in mind that if you add a layer on top of the marks that you make with the crayon, just know that anything wet will lift that up or start to spread it. So um, if you want to add any marks that will not be moved after you're done putting them down, just make sure you add those last when you're mixing your colors.
That is a hot tip from an art teacher.
Yeah. And from somebody who learned the hard way.
Of course. Um, let's see. Any other questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat. Sarah, it would be cool if you did a collage for the things in your wedding. Um, yeah, I am working on it. I'm sort of like piecing together some things that I want to use as ephemera, and also piecing together some things that I want to use for watercoloring. Yeah, I mean, anything to keep riding on cloud nine, I will absolutely. So,
Well, and what a nice way to preserve all of that stuff. I think that, because you'll look back on it and it's just such a nice way to enjoy it.
totally. It is definitely something that I think about regularly. Like, I know I'll have photos, but like, what else can I preserve from that day to, keep top of mind? Um, Something else that I want to give a sneak peek to in this box. So I did, the tracing method to get the books onto watercolor paper.
Mhm.
I used a 6B pencil and then like rubbed it onto the hot press.
Mm,
Uh,
mhm.
it worked really well, but it wasn't good enough for laying down layers of paint. So I went in with the Faber Castell Eco Pigment pen, um,
Mm,
which is waterproof.
the best.
So this pen is also coming in the next watercolor snacks box. Um, so I outlined all this and then I put it away for a little bit. I find with any pen, whether it's waterproof or not, just like give it a break. Like put it down
Mhm.
on watercolor paper and then let it dry. It's not like an
Yeah.
immediate dry, so you got to give it some time. Here we go with the theme of impatience. Uh, but yeah, it does. The only thing that has, I mean, there's no bleeding or anything because I had that time to let the ink sort of like seep into the paper. The only thing that
Mhm.
I did, which I guess is like a rookie move, is that my water is dirty. So
Oh,
dirty water created this like yellowish green. I don't know if you can see that on the screen.
only a little.
Up
Yeah.
top, which was not my intention, so I, like, panicked for a minute, and I was like, "No way, it's waterproof. Why is it doing that?" And then I realized that my water is dirty, so
Oh, no.
I'm gonna call that a rookie
Oh.
for sure.
Yeah, well, that's okay though. It definitely happens. And again, I've made that mistake because I am again too excited to keep moving forward and I don't want to take a break to go get up and change out my water. So I've definitely been like, oops, I should have put new water in. Oh well.
Oh, well. We do have a question in the chat here. May I ask why hot press? Um, I think for the last few boxes, we've had cold press. And I think honestly, we picked hot press just to mix it up a little bit. But Amelia, do you think that there are better techniques that work on hot press as opposed to cold press?
That's a really good question. And truthfully, off the top of my head, I don't have an answer for that,
Okay.
but I'm very interested in finding one. So I think that that could be something I can look into and find
Yeah,
out more.
we can
I
explore that for sure.
I will say though, to that point, this isn't quite answering the question, but I think it's related enough that it might help maybe clear up a little bit of the difference between the two, but also differences between watercolor paper and brace yourself. So I'm gonna get nerdy because I love like thinking about how things are made. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about like the differences between the paper and maybe why you might get different effects between the two. So that it doesn't really talk about techniques, but it can talk a little bit about the differences. So
Yeah.
hopefully that helps. So watercolor paper, we mentioned, is either hot press or cold press. So we mentioned it a little earlier, but just to reiterate, it's the finish of the paper. So when they are rolling out the paper and they're pressing it down flat, the hot press paper is pressed down with a hot roller, and that smooths out the bumps, kind of like an iron. And the cold press paper is pressed without heat. So you have more of what's called a tooth, which is when you get those bumps and grooves in your paper. And so the difference between the two when you put paint on is going to be that the surface of the paper is going to absorb water and pigment differently. So you, depending on how much water you use, you may get a different effect based on the type of paper you use. So I guess that can kind of be a technique, sort of. I have found that when I'm using hot press paper, I kind of have to work a little bit more quickly because the paper starts to soak in the pigment a little faster, and I find that I get a little more of a streaky look.
Mm,
Maybe using a little more water might be helpful.
interesting. Okay.
I'm very curious to learn more. So this is something that I'm now going to go on a deep dive of and learn more about. And then get really nerdy about it and then probably talk about it endlessly the next time.
But then you get to be the expert on hot press versus cold press. I mean,
Yeah,
I see nothing wrong with this.
exactly. But the other thing that might be a helpful tip when figuring out different watercolor techniques or the amount of water slash pigment slash water to pigment ratio, however you want to say it,
Mm.
has to do with the absorbency and the fibers of the paper. So some papers are more absorbent than others. And so some of them will need more water to soak up uh, the paper. This Hahnemühle agave paper is so absorbent and I love it. It's great because you can get really washy with your paint. Like you can put a ton of water in there and it's going to soak it right up. But the downside to that is that it soaks it up so fast that sometimes I can't keep up. I'm like, oh, it's already drying. What the heck? Which is great for when you're impatient, but then when you want it to dry slowly, it's like, oh, okay, now I have to kind of catch up. So I feel like everything kind of has its own characteristic. So it's really good to do stuff like this to swatch and experiment, kind of learn and understand the way that the paint reacts with the paper, vice versa. So it's all really good, just experimentation.
I love that. And I feel like I need to make a list of art supplies for impatient artists. Uh,
Yeah,
and I think the agave paper is like number one for watercolorists. I'm pretty sure we still
yeah,
have those pads in the art snack shop. So if anybody wants to hop over there, feel free. I have the
yeah,
little card here, shop.artsnacks.co. Feel free to hop over there and peruse the watercolor selection. And you can also, just gonna put my plug here. If you go to shop.artsnacks.co, you can also subscribe to Watercolor Snacks on there,
yeah.
and get nerdy with Amelia every quarter.
Yes. Yeah, get ready because 'cause I'm really nerdy about it. It's one of those things that's, like, an area of special interest for me, so it's like when I'm bored, I'm like, "What can I learn about
Hmm.
materials and techniques, and how can I try something new?" So, I love it. But I'm also, by nature, an over explainer, so You're definitely gonna learn probably way more than you expected you would from me.
That's awesome. I mean, you got to use that college education somewhere, right? We're listening.
Exactly, exactly. My parents will be glad because they're like, "Okay, good. She's using the degree. Okay."
I think about that all the time. I'm like, well, what have I designed lately as a graphic designer?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, literally everything.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely getting our money's worth. Ooh, um, I don't have the yellow that is featured in the box, so I just went with this magenta. Is this the magenta? It's quinacridone magenta or quin magenta for short.
Lovely. I like that. That's such a pretty color.
This was so fun. I'm just like sort of going with the flow. I never get to go with the flow anymore.
Yay! Well, I mean, not yay that you don't get to go with the flow, but yay that you're doing it now.
And I'm so happy with the results of the Eco Pigment pen. Seriously, it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
really working its magic and staying completely um, dry. It's staying in place. It's yeah, it's like perfect. Let's see. Any other questions here? Oh, it looks like Lee hopped in the chat. Winter box ships first week of February. Thank you. Um, Sue asked, where are the templates such as the books being used? Oh yeah, can you remind us, Amelia, where the swatching template is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you can download it if you are a Watercolor Snacks subscriber and you are a member of the mix group. I posted it there, and I posted it as a downloadable JPEG, so it's something that you can print out, and then you can do. I did the same technique as Sarah, where I put graphite on the back of my printout, and then I just used a ballpoint pen and went over the lines and then it transferred onto my paper. So yeah, so it's available there.
Yeah, that is also a hot tip. I feel like maybe I should make a Instagram reel about that because it's super helpful if you don't have like a light table, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It just really comes in handy.
Ooh, that's fun. I kind of want to make one too.
The more you know.
Yes.
If anybody has any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We are getting close to the end of our live stream. Um, while people are getting their questions ready, I am just going to put one more plug for Watercolor Snacks. As of this morning, we had 15 slots available for the winter watercolor snacks box. It ships the first week of February, and Daniel Smith is going to be in it. So I don't know about you, but better get on it if you want this box. And with every subscription, you get access to ArtSnacks Mix, a private mix group for watercolorists that Amelia was discussing earlier. And you'll get not quarterly, you'll get 4 live streams happening throughout the quarter that Amelia will teach you watercolor techniques, color theory. Now that we know she's teaching a color theory class,
Yes.
definitely come to those classes. You'll learn a ton, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So you can go to shop.artsnacks.co. This is our online store, but we also have the subscriptions available for purchase on there as well. So I will leave that here. Um, and Amelia, anything else you want to bring up before we wrap up our live stream?
Hmm. Um, I mean, I guess will say that I really love, I think my favorite part of Watercolor Snacks is the community of artists and people who are participating. Because, like I was saying earlier, I feel like I learn so much from other people. Uh, sometimes people are aware of a cool technique or something that I haven't heard of, and it gives me an opportunity to learn something totally new. Or they have a question. I mean, it happened tonight about something that I don't have the answer for, and it gives me a really exciting opportunity to learn something new. So I just love engaging with other artists and creators and getting to talk about art in depth and just really get a chance to geek out about different techniques and materials. But aside from that, just getting to see what people create. And then the longer that I get to know people and see their work, I get to see their work grow. And that's the most exciting thing for me because that moment of like when someone makes a discovery or stuff just clicks, like that's what I enjoy the most about teaching. So I'm just so excited to get to interact with more people, see more art, and yeah, I get to see the community grow too.
I love that. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The community is definitely a excuse the pun, but it is a draw to subscribe um, because you get to, create with all these other artists and just stay in that close community.
Yeah.
Um, awesome. I see in the chat GVL signed up yesterday. Awesome. We're so excited to get you your first box. Um,
Yay.
I love the atmosphere you all of you create. Ah, we're happy to be the atmosphere makers.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap us up here tonight. If you are on YouTube, make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube page. We do put out videos every few weeks, whether it is a box review or a live stream like this. Um, you name it, there's always content coming out. If you want to follow me, I run the ArtSnacks Instagram, but I also have my own Instagram. I'm at Sarah Rubes. And Amelia, I believe your Instagram is Amelia. Is it Amelia Gossman Illustration? Is
Very
that what?
close. It's my first and middle name, Amelia Grace Illustration. Gossman is confusing.
That
People
would
always want to add an R or an A somewhere, so Grace is easier.
Amelia Grace Illustration on Instagram. And Amelia is very active. I love all the I love your stories. It's always like cute illustrations and like memes and stuff. So
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and I love sharing tips too, like any kind of educational tips. I always like to share those too. So, yeah, anything that
yay.
comes across.
Please put handles in the chat. Ooh, actually, I wonder if I can do that. Oh, since I am running the live stream, I'm actually not able to type out in the chat. But if Lee's
Yeah,
watching, maybe he'll add that. But there you go. Did you just write it out on a paper pad?
I did. That's why I keep one handy. So hopefully
This
that
live
helps.
stream is also going to be recorded, so it will populate back onto our YouTube channel. I'd say within the next hour or so. So awesome, Amelia. It was so nice to do some watercoloring with you. Thank you for taking the time to be creative with me.
Yes,
This is going to
thank
be a great.
you. Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much. I had so much fun. This was great.
Yay! Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you on the internet. We'll see you on the live streams. Thanks for joining.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.